Good news. I checked my order status and it turns out that my Akrapovic full exhaust is going to be here 2 days early. Always a good surprise. So in preparation for that, we're going to start by taking the old system off. So first things first, we're going to go through and figure out what all is holding this on. We got, looks like 6 12mm bolts holding the headers in place. And following the headers down, we run into a Bosch O2 sensor. That being an American-made part, I'm going to guess it's going to be a standard O2 sensor size, and a 7/8 should be able to take care of it. I'm seeing where the end of the plug is, so I don't actually have to use an O2 wrench on it. Following the O2 sensor back, we can see where the plug terminates right here. And directly behind that, kind of set into the rear set, we have a 12mm hanging the rear section of the exhaust. I'm going to assume it's going to be the same on the other side. As expected, on the left-hand side of the bike, we got another one holding that big old can up. That's going to be a 12mm as well, and that looks like the only bolts holding this thing on. So, using logical thinking, we obviously don't want to tear our O2 sensor wire. So we're going to break this loose. And we're going to follow this wire to where it terminates at this plug right here and unplug it. So I couldn't really see what the heck I was doing as far as the clip inside of this goes. So we're going to pull this off of where it was mounted. Make sure that we actually do this right so we don't pull any wires out. Yeah, there was no way I was going to be able to get to that without doing this first. There we go. Alright. So our O2 sensor plug is off. And now we're just going to simply remove our O2 sensor. And it still has a bit of anti-seize on there. We're going to use more when we put it back together though. So we're going to set this in a safe and clean spot. I'm actually just going to hang it from one of my drawers, making sure that this doesn't get anything stuck in it. Alright, so this part's going to be kind of a balancing act of getting the headers loose enough to be taken off, but you also don't want to put too much strain on anything. So I'm just going to take probably 5 of the 6 out. And this last one I'm just going to break loose. Okay, just kidding. I'm taking it all the way off, I guess. So these are still held on. Well, at least the middle one is still held on by exhaust studs. That should be good enough. So let's move to the rear hangers. Alright, so I'm attacking that 12 next. And still got the other side in there, so I should be safe to remove this all the way. There we go. And that would be the last one. Alright, so being careful not to bend anything, I'm going to lift up on my header. Okay, that's clear. And I see an exhaust gasket flying away from here. I got 1, 2, and there should be a third one. Hopefully it's still in the engine. And let's dig around, see if we can find it. There we go. Alright, so I do believe I am going to have to retain my factory hardware. I'm not sure, so this is staying here. We got the 6 header bolts, 2 mount bolts, and 3 exhaust gaskets. And to give you guys kind of a visual on the stock unit, it's not actually bad looking at all. It is MIG welded, as you would expect from a factory exhaust. The welds look good, the collector looks good. It doesn't actually look that restrictive to about this point. Once you get to this canister, it leaves a little bit to be desired. So aesthetically, it's not bad looking. It is just kind of meh. So overall, I mean, for a factory exhaust, it's not terrible. Kind of derailing from topic here, but this is the side-by-side of the factory R1 unit. The servo that opened and closed this at lower and higher RPM has been deleted. But this gigantic chunk of restriction is what came factory on the R1. So obviously that's considerably less restrictive, but at the same time could be a lot cooler, could sound a lot better. So I will be the first to admit this is the first Akrapovic pipe I've ever run before. Got a lot of friends who have used them. I've ridden a lot of bikes with them, but definitely a first for me. Alright. So item number one is going to be the header. Very nicely TIG welded. Yeah, great looking pipe. Even the TIG welds on the inside of the mouth of the exhaust is very nicely done. And this is going to be the main canister. Ooh, that's pretty. Yeah, that looks really, really nice. Just great presentation the whole way around. The carbon fiber mesh looks great. Really solid looking piece. Akrapovic has actually been eliminating your ability to take your decibel killer out as per some law in Europe. So where this would usually unbolt, you actually have to drill a spot weld out. So I'm going to take these three Torx, I guess. Yeah, these three Torx bits off, get this carbon fiber cover off, and get to the decibel killer. So I'm seeing carbon fiber splinters, so guess what? I'm putting gloves on. Speaking from experience, carbon fiber dust is not something you want to be playing around with. It's pretty evil stuff. I'll give you a bit of a history lesson. Igor Akrapovic is actually, or was actually, a pretty decent road racer back in his day. And he didn't like conventional pipes, so he decided to make his own. Apparently he didn't want them coming off in one piece. So he actually bought a titanium foundry. So all of the metal that goes into an Akrapovic pipe is controlled by the company from the molecular level. This is something that is from the ore in the ground until it becomes a finished product, something that's solely 100% within their control. So it's pretty neat. Alright, so right here is our spot weld where there would normally be a bolt. So I'm going to center punch that, drill through that, and then drill that out so we can get the decibel killer out of there. And I'm going to tap and thread all of this as well so I can reinstall it should I ever decide to. Alright, decibel killer is out. Piece of cake. Completely unrelated note, Igor Akrapovic, if you're still alive, you can go Okay, next step. So in our bag here, they give us 4 bolts and some thread locker. So for the sake of not getting thread locker all over myself, I'm just going to get this on the threads. This is only semi-permanent anyways, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. It's cool that they supply it though. This is probably like a $30 bottle of purple Loctite. Kidding, but seriously. Alright, so the manual is telling me these need to be tightened down to 16 foot-pounds. And it was already on 16. Cool. I did not preset that up. That's just kind of a lucky coincidence. Alright, those are on. Now let's move on to the headers. So I was right in my earlier assumption that I would be reusing the factory gaskets as well as the factory bolts, which is okay because these only have about 200 miles on them and they're, except for this one, they're in great shape. All right. Set this up and in, making sure that we're not pinching any of our gaskets. Right, having done this on our one, I'm going to assume that torque specs are going to be the same value, and it should be 16 foot-pounds. So what I'm going to do is just get these snug on both sides, as you don't want these flanges to compress on one side more than another, because they will bend and warp and ruin your day. And yes, I'm speaking from experience on that, unfortunately. And we are set to 16 foot-pounds. So I'm actually going to go 8 foot-pounds on the first turn on everything. Again, because I want to really evenly distribute this. So I'm just kind of watching my light there and waiting until it gets to the halfway mark. And now I'll actually get him down to 16. Alright, so put more anti-seize on there. Wasn't going to do it on camera because I didn't want to have to change my gloves. So I don't want to get anti-seize all over my camera button. Okay, so the O2 sensor's all hooked back up. Okay, so I've got my pipe ready. I've got my exhaust springs ready. What's ironic is I'm going to be using a Yoshimura tool that Yoshimura provided for free. Akrapovic was not as polite, but I don't know, it's the little things, you know? You know what, you guys just watch and find out. See what happens. Alright, so it's almost on-ish. Very long story short, it turns out that the distance between the back of the pipe itself and the tire is about that too far to be able to get this to swing itself up into place. So you have to pull the rear tire off, at least in my case. So wanted to point out that this was not seated all the way in before. Give it a couple of gentle whacks with a rubber mallet, and now it's actually seated where it should be. Everything looks a lot better and ready for test fire. So it kind of goes without saying that this is no longer the mild-mannered cruiser. This is now kind of the dickhead cruiser. The bike is extremely loud. There's no two ways about that, but it's not loud enough that I'm going to put the decibel killer back in. It is quieter than the R1, but it's also deeper than the R1. So when you're standing next to it, it really hits your chest. Sitting on the bike and revving it, it doesn't sound that loud at all. So it's just a matter of perspective. Riding the bike, I don't think is going to be uncomfortably loud. However, standing next to it for somebody else, probably, which I'm okay with. So, next video is going to be hopefully dyno tune, but probably before that some seat time just to give you guys an idea of the sound of the bike. Anyways, if you like this video, you know what to do, and I will see you in the next one, and hopefully I will be on it.